This is BBC News, the headlines. Storm Eunice is hitting the UK with rare warnings of a danger to life in some areas. People are being told to stay at home and avoid the coast. The strong winds are causing disruption across the UK. Gusts of 122 miles an hour have been recorded off the Isle of Wight and almost 90 miles an hour in South Wales. Red weather warnings have been issued for millions across the south of England and Wales. Further warnings are in place across the country.
You should really consider whether you need to travel today, because we are still expecting extreme weather in that zone, and the likelihood of flying debris, the likelihood of further power issues. We're already being hit by those, and further travel disruption.
All trains in Wales have been cancelled, with further disruption across the UK. Ferries to the Isle of Wight and some cross-channel services have been stopped, and there's a warning about dangers on the roads too.
It's terrifying. I mean, this sort of wind tests the HGV drivers to the limit of their ability.
The leader of Belarus visits Vladimir Putin to discuss how long thousands of Russian troops will stay in Belarus as joint exercises continue. Children are waiting longer for hospital treatment, cancer care and mental health support as new data shows the impact of the pandemic on children's treatment times. And the head of the International Olympic Committee says it was chilling to see the way the Russian skater Kamila Valieva was treated by her coach after she failed to win a medal at the Winter Olympics. Hello, millions of people are being warned to stay at home as one of the worst storms in decades, Storm Eunice, is battering the UK. The Met Office has taken the unusual step of issuing 2 red warnings today, which means there is a danger to life from flying debris and warnings of damage to homes, power cuts and major travel disruption. The first rare red alert in southwest England and southern Wales lasts until midday. Wind gusts of up to 90 miles an hour have been recorded in those areas. The danger to life zone has also been extended for the first time ever to parts of the southeast of England, including London. The Met Office says winds of up to 122 miles an hour have been recorded at the Needles on the Isle of Wight, although that is an exposed site. There's also an amber warning for wind across much of England and Wales. While there are less severe alerts for wind and snow in much of Scotland, the north of England and Northern Ireland. Hundreds of schools across the UK have already confirmed they will remain closed because of Storm Eunice. Travel has already been affected in Wales and the southwest, with Transport for Wales cancelling all trains on Friday. Roads are closed across the UK and more than 100 flights have been cancelled. And ferry services between Dover and Calais and across the Irish Sea have been suspended until further notice. We can go to our correspondent John Ayres, who's live in Westwood Ho in Devon. Over to you. What is it like there, John?
Well, it's very, very windy, as you can imagine. Now, the good news for this part of the region was the wind was expected to be earlier. Now, if that had been the case, it would have coincided with the high spring tides. And if that had happened, there would have been a much greater risk of serious coastal flooding all around this area. Now, thankfully, because the peak of the wind has been a bit later, that hasn't happened, which means that a lot of real problems here have been averted. But that said, the wind is very, very strong, as you can probably see. It's difficult to stand up. We've taken a slightly sheltered position here, but if you step right out into the street, you really feel like you might get knocked over. I've seen people hanging onto lampposts and bollards as they're walking down the street. There's flying debris, that's why I'm wearing a hard hat. There's tiles over there that have come over some of the buildings. We've got a sign down here at this pub that we're standing outside, and there's a balcony that has broken up just on the seafront. The waves here at Westwood Ho are absolutely enormous. Now, as you can imagine, it makes sense if you don't need to go out, don't do so, because the conditions here are really rough and are expected to be so for a little while longer.
Thank you very much, John. Hold your hat and stay safe. Thank you. Well, as we've been reporting, a red weather warning means there's a danger to life, and it's now in force in London, southeast England and parts of East England. We can get more on the travel disruption caused by the weather warnings. Our correspondent Sancha Berg is at Paddington Station in London. What's the situation now there, Sancha?
Well, the boards tell the story here at Paddington Station. There are no trains to Wales. Trains elsewhere to the west of England have been delayed, but trains are coming in, trains are going out. We've just seen one train which we think is going to the west. It's not up on the board, it's on platform 1, filling up with people. Another one pulled out about half an hour ago, going to Bristol. There are trains still running apparently for Heathrow, though with some delays. So other stations in London, like Waterloo, southeastern trains as well, have been very badly affected by the storms. Mainline trains have been cancelled. That doesn't seem to be happening here at Paddington. And I asked one member of staff about it, and he said, we're tough as old boots here at Paddington. So far, the trains in and out of here do seem to be still running. But we are also hearing and experiencing quite high gusts of wind from outside.
Thank you very much indeed, Sancha. We've got some pictures to bring you, actually. I think they show a tree house that has been brought down.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Whoa! Oh my gosh.
Wow. Wow, wasn't expecting to actually see that happening there. These pictures just coming through to us. I think they're from Lucinda James in Stonehouse in Gloucestershire. That must have been pretty frightening for them to be standing there watching that. Let's just take a look at it from the beginning again.
Oh my gosh, it's falling over. Oh my gosh. Whoa! Oh my gosh. No. Oh my gosh. Right. Okay. It's okay. It's not, nobody's hurt, and it hasn't hurt the, it's just hurt the brand new fence. Whoa. Whoa. Oh my gosh. That was very close to the house.
Wow, we can see there exactly how close that was to the house. You can see the corner of the house there, and obviously the deck at the right up against the house. So that fell away from the house, and Lucinda there obviously reassuring her child that luckily no one was hurt, but that was really dramatic in Stonehouse in Gloucestershire, and perhaps we can try to talk to Lucinda a little bit later, but quite extraordinary there to see the strength of that wind bringing down that tree and that tree house. We can talk to Scott Duncan, meteorologist. Welcome, thank you for joining us. Well, we're hearing then that the latest strongest wind is 122 miles an hour. It's off the Isle of Wight on the Needles, so it's an exposed area, but nonetheless, I mean, that is an extraordinary record to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a kind of windstorm that's capable of breaking these sort of records. There's only a handful of storms in the last couple of decades that kind of rival this sort of intensity and widespread nature. So it's not too surprising that we're seeing wind gusts, breaking well into the hundreds. But yeah, getting above 120 miles an hour is certainly impressive, and we'll see the verification of that, no doubt, in the not too distant future. But it does surpass the English record that we've had in place before.
And in terms of how things are looking right now, are you poring over the live pictures, the latest satellite images? What's the impression that you are getting of how things are right now across different areas?
Well, Storm Eunice has been a very well forecast storm, actually. It got named on Monday on Valentine's Day. It seems like quite a long time ago, and that's unusually early to have a storm named. And the weather models haven't really changed much over the course of the week, which is, again, quite impressive. So a dangerous scenario has been in forecast for quite some time. We rolled forward, the warnings then escalated, and now we're here and it's red, and we're now seeing the damage kind of unfold. So it's not too surprising. The satellite images we're seeing coming in is matching what we're seeing on the observations with the wind gusts. So it's almost just not that surprising just to see it unfold now in real time. Unfortunately, it's obviously pretty catastrophic, especially when we're seeing some of the footages that we're seeing coming in social media or through the news channels. But kind of just seeing it unfold, it's basically a very well forecast storm, creating quite a bit of havoc as it moves through, tracking from west to east, and we're pretty much approaching the peak now as we go through the kind of lunchtime hours.
And we're seeing live pictures from Brighton where looking very misty as that sea gets whipped up by the winds. In terms of comparisons with previous big storms, I mean, it's very rare to have a red warning, isn't it? How do you think that this one compares? I guess, I mean, we'll only really know at the end of the day when it's properly hit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've still got quite a lot of the kind of dangerous time to go through, especially the kind of central eastern parts, as we've still got the main part of the storm to go through. But I think London has not had a red wind warning under its current warning system. So that kind of just does stress it's pretty significant in that in itself. A few other storms which of this caliber kind of ring out, like the Great Burnstay storm of 1990. So that's, a 30-year storm, which obviously wreaked a lot of havoc across much of the country. It was it was the costliest windstorm weather event we've ever had in the country, and felled over 3 million trees. So we're kind of talking at the top end of what's kind of possible across the country. And it's one of these days where it's dangerous weather, and the warnings really do kind of hold up, and they should be respected.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Well, we can go now to Rod Dennis, who's the RAC Breakdown spokesperson. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. What reports are you getting from the roads?
A lot of people so far this morning have been heeding these warnings. As your previous guest said, this has been a very well forecast weather event, and that does look like it's translating to people staying off the roads today, which is absolutely wise. We have been reminding people through the course of the last 24 hours at least not to set out today on the roads unless it is absolutely essential that you do. And I think as the storm does track east, it moves inland. Some of the impacts we're going to see are going to probably increase through the course of this afternoon. Things like flying debris, fallen trees, power lines down, those sorts of things we're going to start to see over the course of the next few hours, I think, as that storm moves through. And what I would say to people this morning is, if you're looking outside now, perhaps you're in the east of England and the weather doesn't seem that bad, there is some really bad weather moving your way. So please don't sort of don't do anything which you wouldn't do. Don't put yourself to any undue risks, I think, over the next few hours. And
I mean, obviously that you're saying that people are keeping off the roads today. We're looking at some really dramatic pictures now of where there has been damage. There was a tree on a car. In terms of the cars that are on the roads, have you been getting many call-outs?
It's really interesting, actually, in terms of overall volumes down in the sort of central and southern parts of England, not so much, and that's good news. I think that's, like I said, people heeding the warnings. Further north, that's really where the breakdown volume is. That's where our patrols are extremely busy at the moment. There's some flash flooding taking place. There's people being pulled out of snow, some of the wintry conditions we've got moving over the north of England in particular. But again, I think really it's also going to be the aftermath of Eunice that we need to keep an eye on. The weather does still stay very unsettled after today, and I think the high winds we're going to see in the coming days are probably going to hamper some of the clear-up effort. So again, the message drivers is please do stay safe, but we're not sort of out of the woods yet by any means. Thank you very much for joining us, Rod Dennis from the RAC. And do stay in touch with us in terms of your experiences. Obviously, the advice is stay home, but if you've seen anything out of your window, if you've got anything you want to report, we'd love to hear from you. At BBC Joanna G is how to get in touch with me via Twitter. Let's go to Heathrow. I think we've got live pictures coming in there. Yeah, you can see very cloudy skies. Well, these aren't particularly revelatory at the moment, as far as I can see. Very cloudy skies over Heathrow. There is a plane coming in, so clearly planes are coming in and out as we knew, but there is some disruption. I was talking to the Mayor of London a little bit earlier, who said that City Airport is closed and there are some delays and cancellations at other airports. So this is the scene at Heathrow. Well, let's go to the south coast of Wales and join BBC Wales reporter Matt Murray in the town of Porthcawl. Matt, what's the latest there?
Well, I've been here since 5 o'clock this morning, and I thought it was bad about an hour ago, but actually the winds have got even stronger here. The RNLI Centre, just about a quarter of a mile from here, are now recording winds of 86 miles per hour. It's thought some coastal areas will feel winds of between 90 to 100 miles per hour today. Now, red warnings issued by the Met Office are extremely rare. It means that there could be significant disruption and also a danger to life with flying debris. And we've seen plenty of flying debris here this morning. There's been tiles flying off roofs, and many councils are reporting disruption as well, with trees down and also some power lines down now in Wales. Here in Porthcawl, The high tide was about 9 o'clock this morning and the waves were crashing over the promenade here. The concern then was with the spring tides and these strong winds, it creates a surge which then creates massive waves, and that can lead to flooding. There are currently 113 flood warnings in place across Wales, and for the first time ever, all train services in Wales have been cancelled and virtually all schools are closed today. So in Wales, half term has come early for many, but it's very quiet here now as people are listening to the warning that actually to stay at home and don't go out and steer clear of the coast, especially because it is extremely dangerous.
Thank you very much. Stay safe there in Porthcawl. Let's go back to Heathrow. We've actually got some recorded pictures that were from the inside of a plane as it was coming into land at Heathrow. And as far as I understand it, when it does land, there's a bit of applause inside that plane because presumably they were feeling being buffeted by the winds as they came into land at Heathrow, where there are a number of flight cancellations today. So we'll stay with these pictures as that plane touches down safely at Heathrow Airport. One of the factors in deciding whether planes get cancelled or can continue to fly is not just the strength of the winds, but also the direction of the winds. Sorry, I thought they were going to applaud, but no, they didn't. But anyway, that was a plane landing safely at Heathrow. Well, we can go to the southwest of England. Our correspondent Jenny Kumar is in St Ives in North Cornwall, and she's been speaking to my colleague Ben Brown with the latest on how Storm Eunice is affecting the area.
The wind speed is really picking up. I'm finding it a bit hard to stand still and being blown about a little bit. But earlier this morning, businesses here were preparing to face the storm. So far, not much flood damage. They've been clearing away sand, but it's generally been quite quiet on the harbour front. The high tide didn't bring as much flooding as they were expecting, but the gusts are expected to pick up between now and midday. 90 miles per hour is expected here. Concerns about sea waves, waves of up to 9.5 metres overtopping sea defences, and across Devon and Cornwall there's been already an amount of disruption. Hundreds of schools across the region are closed. Transport is being affected. Trains are operating at reduced service. There's speed restrictions. Branch lines across Devon and Cornwall have been closed. The hospital trust here has cancelled appointments. There are thousands of homes that have had their power cut off. So lots of disruption already, and people are bracing themselves for more disruption ahead.
Bracing themselves, I know they're pretty hardy souls there on the Cornish coast. What sort of preparations have they been taking, Jenny?
Well, yesterday, businesses along the harbour front here were putting up their defences, putting out the sandbags. Fishermen were securing their boats. The council here has been working with the emergency services, with the power company. They've set up an emergency centre this morning, and they say they are well placed to deal with disruption. There has been some trees coming down, so they have been busy kind of dealing with those kind of things. So we are waiting, oh, the big gush just there. We are waiting to see, bracing ourselves for a battering here.
Jenny Kumar reporting earlier, and of course we'll keep you updated, and of course everyone is taking safety very seriously when they're out and about reporting on this today. Let's get the latest sport. We can go back to Ollie. Hi Ollie.